Welcome to the Infamous Podcast. This is Darryl helping you bring in the new month. It is already July. I'm recording this late on Thursday, July 1st, as we are coming close up on the 4th of July. I hope everyone had a good June, and hopefully it was a little bit better to you all than it was to me. June from a everything level was pretty busy, pretty rough, but hey. We're not even halfway through summer, so I look at it as everything's just going to continue to get better. So what am I bringing you today? Bringing you a lot of news on trailers. Again, this was one of those weeks where we had a ton of trailers released. And then today, we did have some great news for PlayStation fans, PlayStation 4, and for those unicorns who have PS5s. Great news, and I'm going to save that nugget for last. But with that said, let's just start talking about some of these movies out. First one on the list, and probably the worst trailer that I saw this week, but a movie that I'm quite interested in, is Jolt. It stars Kate Beckinsale, Jai Courtney, Bobby Cannavale, and Stanley Tucci. It's directed by Tanya Wexler, and the premise is a bouncer, Kate Beckinsale, with a slightly murderous anger management problem that she controls with the help of an electrode-lined vest she uses to shock herself back to normalcy when she gets homicidal. After the first guy she'd ever fallen for is murdered, that's a bit of a spoiler there, she goes on a revenge-fueled rampage to find the killer while the cops pursue her as their chief suspect. This is a cross between, watching this trailer, it was a cross between Crank, the movie, probably a decade ago. There were two of them starring Jason Statham. Another 90s movie called Drive with Mark Dacascos and Kadeem Hardison. And there was that generic female action flick vibe to it as well. The saving grace for this movie could be that it is dubbed an action comedy. So I don't think it's going to take itself too seriously, because if it does, I mean, Kate Beckinsale, I love Kate Beckinsale. Loved her in the Underworld movies, but she's not a vampire. She's not a big, strong, physically imposing character. So this being an action comedy that doesn't take itself too seriously, I think, despite the trailer being very poorly put together, I think this will be a fun time. It arrives July 23rd on Amazon Prime. Next on the list is a movie that was surprisingly, it's a sequel to a movie that's surprisingly good, is Don't Breathe, starring Stephen Lang. In the first movie, I'm not, for those who didn't see it, Stephen Lang is a blind man who house is invaded by, three teens who, they heard that he had money in the house, and so they decided to break in. All hell breaks loose, and being blind, he has the advantage when it's night. This movie takes place 8 years later, and it says the character, his name was Norman Nordstrom. That sounds like a comic book character if I ever heard of comic book character name if I ever heard of it. But he lives with 11-year-old Phoenix. He has recreated the family that was stolen from him by a drunk driver, and he has found the twisted justice he always felt was his due. When intruders once again come to his home, this time focused on Phoenix, Norman will reveal for a second time what's hidden inside him, and again it will be in new and unexpected ways. Again, I was pleasantly surprised with the first Don't Breathe. This second one, again, it seems like more of the same, but some of that originality that we saw from the first one, that's not going to capture, the imagination as it did in the first one. I am a fan of Stephen Lang. He's always pretty, he's that gruff individual. He has that gruff characteristic that a lot of his roles, that he uses in a lot of his roles. I'll take a look at this one, but it doesn't look like anything special. This, Don't Breathe 2 hits theaters on August 13th. Speaking of August 13th, we have another movie, and this time it's going to be a Netflix. It's going straight to Netflix. It's called Beckett. It's starring John David Washington, Alicia Vikander, and Boyd Holbrook. And it says, following a tragic car accident in Greece, that's a place I really want to go, Beckett, an American tourist, finds himself at the center of a dangerous political conspiracy and on the run for his life. This is one of those that it's almost kind of like a nightmare scenario in the sense of traveling internationally, having something terrible happen, and find yourself at the mercy of law enforcement in another country. The twist in this one, though, there's a little bit more than just the law enforcement. There's obviously something that he saw in the trailer. He mentions to one of the officers, there was somebody in this building, and the officer says, hey, nobody lives there. So there is something that he saw, or someone thinks he saw, and he's on the run from the law enforcement. And from what it looks like, some very shadowy individuals. The Boyd Holbrook, I believe he plays not the CIA, but the embassy, the U.S. Embassy. Words are hard. The U.S. Embassy liaison or something along those lines. Who he might be a sketchy character. This is directed by Fernando Cito Filamarino, who I am not familiar with any of his work. It's not a movie that I would go out of my way to see, but John David Washington, Alicia Vikander, Boyd Holbrook, I like all three of them. It's going to be on Netflix. I'm going to give it a shot. Now, jumping back to theater releases, Candyman, the second trailer released. This is one of those movies that should have been released last year, but we had something, that Modelo virus that just completely set back the world, and movie theaters were hit very hard with it too, as many movies were pushed back again and again and again. Well, finally we get a release date for this. Is August 27th, and it stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Teyonah Parris, Coleman Domingo, and Nathan Stewart Jarrett, among others. It's directed by Nia DaCosta, who I am not familiar with, but she is also set to direct the Marvels for for Disney and the MCU. It's produced by Jordan Peele, which again, Jordan Peele is one of those. He has really been hot since since the whole thing with Get Out a few years back. While I do admire his talent, I don't necessarily believe that the movies that have come from him, and granted, I have not seen his the Twilight Zone show. I might take a look at that since I have a month's access to Paramount Plus right now. But I'm not sure the praise he's been getting for movies like Get Out and Us are deserved in the sense of the movies themselves. I thought Get Out was good, a little bit overrated, and I didn't like Us at all. I thought Us was not a good movie. Now, Candyman might be a little different. It's a spiritual sequel, whatever that means, to the horror film Candyman from 1992 that starred Tony Todd. And it returns to the now gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. This trailer it plays on the idea that, the Candyman character was wrongfully accused. Some police officers took matters into their own hands, and there's definitely going to be a racial component to this, just like all of Jordan Peele's movies. That's not going to say that it's going to be bad or preachy or overdone. I am actually a little bit interested. The horror elements to this movie, I wish they would have showed a little bit more of in the trailer, but looks like an interesting twist from the original Candyman. But again, this is a spiritual sequel. So I am curious about this. I don't know. I don't think I will go to the movies to see this, but who knows? Maybe we'll get another trailer, because it's still almost 2 months away, that will do a better job of pulling me in. Again, Candyman will be in theaters on August 27th. Jumping back to the small screen, Foundation, starring Jared Harris and Lee Pace. It's created by Josh Friedman and David S. Goyer. This series is an adaptation of the Isaac Asimov series of the same name. And to my shame, it's a book series very well known that I have yet to read. I know a lot of people out there listening may say, give us your geek card. If you haven't read Asimov's Foundation, you cannot consider yourself a geek. I'm sorry, it's one of those that is on my list. Hey, I just purchased this past weekend. I just went to Half Price Books and got 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Never read that before. Have seen the movie, but I haven't read that before. So just go easy on me a little bit. I will read the Foundation series. Probably not by September 24th when this will appear on Apple TV Plus. And for those not familiar, it's a complex saga of humans scattered on planets throughout the galaxy, all living under the rule of the Galactic Empire. And one of the catches is that where the only way to save the Galactic Empire from destruction is to defy it. This looks very good. Right up my alley as far as sci-fi. Again, when I think sci-fi, I think Star Trek, I think Star Wars. Most recently, the amazing Expanse that was on Sci-Fi and now has found a second home on Amazon Prime. I'm actually very, very excited to see what we get with the Foundation. Goyer is very hit and miss. I will say that he has writing credits that include the very. These are some of his writing credits. The Dark Knight, which okay, fine. Jumper, which I liked. Blade 2, all 3 Blade movies, which I found the first 2 amazing. The third one I thought was unnecessarily bashed, but it wasn't great. Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, Man of Steel, which I loved. Batman v Superman, not so much, and Terminator Dark Fate. So he's up and down as far as his ability to give us some good content. But when he's good, it's pretty damn good. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. I do look forward to seeing this again. The trailer the trailer gave you that epic nature of what is going on when you talk about a galactic empire, when you talk about thousands or hundreds of worlds and maybe dozens of star systems. That type of feel was present in the trailer, and it did not give us much, but it gave me enough to say, hey, I'm going to check this out. Again, Foundation will premiere, I believe it's 10 episodes, will premiere September 24th on Apple Plus. Finally, we have, and this movie will be helping ring in Halloween, which is why it's Halloween Kills, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and Anthony Michael Hall. I did not see the Halloween from the most recent Halloween, which I thought it was curious how they did it. There are before this past Halloween, I believe there were 4, maybe 5 Halloween movies in the series. Well, when this 2020 or 2019 version came out, they said, okay, you remember the first Halloween? That's canon. Everything else is not. So this most recent Halloween was the true sequel to the 1970 or 1980 something version of Halloween. Halloween Kills starts. It's one of those movies that starts right after its predecessor. So it says minutes after Laurie Strode, her daughter Karen, and granddaughter Allison left masked monster Michael Myers. That's some alliteration for you. Caged and burning in Laurie's basement, she's rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, believing she finally killed her tormentor. But when Michael manages to free himself from her trap, his ritual bloodbath resumes. As Laurie fights her pain and prepares to defend herself against him, she inspires all of Haddonfield to rise up against their unstoppable monster. This looks pretty good. I'll say it is in the slasher. It's more of a slasher film than a horror film, I would say. And there's some good some good dramatic tension in the trailer. But, again, it's one of those you have to see the first one before you see this one. And I'll probably have to go back, check to see if it's on HBO Max or something like that. But Halloween Kills does look, for those slasher fans, this seriously looks like a bloodbath. So for slasher fans of Halloween and Friday the 13th, Halloween Kills drops in theaters on August 15th. Now, I said there was going to be some great news for video game fans, for PlayStation fans, I should say. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. So over the last week, maybe week and a half, there's been a lot of rumors floating around about possibly a new expansion, DLC, something going on with Ghost of Tsushima. Well, we got that today in the Director's Cut trailer. It's about a minute and a half. If you're fans of the game, and if you don't know the game, I suggest checking it out. This should have been the game of the year last year, not Last of Us 2. This was as good as any open world game that I've played in the last several years, and that includes things like The Witcher 3. That includes Horizon Zero Dawn. Not saying it's better than. I'm just saying that it was different, but it could hold its own against those games. Even the original Last of Us. The gameplay was great. The story was fantastic. The graphics and the environment of this island of Tsushima, which I didn't know anything about during the Mongol invasion. It was just a spectacular creation from start to finish. And this director's cut, so the director's cut gives us, well, I won't say us since I don't have a PS5, but for you lucky ducks that have a PS5, the new features are going to be dynamic 4K resolution targeting 60 frames per second. Those in the gaming world know that 60 FPS is like that holy grail of just being able to see the animation in its proper form. Who knows if it's going to hit 60 FPS? On the PS4 version, it was probably more like 30. It was still a phenomenal game. Haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, Japanese lip sync, which evidently the lip syncing when you kept it in Japanese was off pretty spectacularly in the first one. I'll have to play it in Japanese. The Legends co-op multiplayer, which was a free add-on a few months ago that came out a few months back. I never got a chance to play that. And this is the Iki Island expanse. So this was what we were what the DLC / expansion rumors were mostly about. So this was going to give us new enemies, a new story, and it says and more. And when it says that, it also shows quick shots of new gear for your horse, new gear for the protagonist. I don't know what else is going to include, but I am so stoked for this game. I've been kind of in a rut lately since I finished Senua's Sacrifice, which that is a game that it's a short game, more of a 10-hour game. It's not open world. It's more linear, like a God of War or something along those lines. Great game. But I've been trying to figure out what to play. I've gone back to Jedi Fallen Order. But when this comes out, when this Iki Island expansion, again, this is going to be for PS4 and PS5, like the expansion. I cannot wait for this game. I cannot wait for this expansion. Again, one of my favorite, not just PS exclusive games, but one of my favorite games in the last 10 years, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. There, you can pre-order now, but it will arrive on PS4 and PS5 on August 20th. There is no mention of price point as far as the Director's Cut itself, or whether or not, or what the Iki Island expansion will cost. I'm going within that. If they do sell that separately for those who already have the game, I'm going with probably in that $15 to $20 range. I don't know how long the expansion is, but I don't care. I'm going to have it. It's going to be mine. And once I'm going to download it on August 20th. And yeah, some of my free time will be playing that. So there you have it. Yeah, gave you some trailer news, some talking about some of these movies coming out over the next few months, and my news of the week as far as entertainment goes, that Ghost of Tsushima director's cut. I hope you enjoyed me talking about some of this content, and once again, my apologies for not being more consistent over the last week or two. Sometimes life gets in the way. But I'm looking forward to giving you more trailers, more video game news, just more entertainment news as a whole. I just love talking to y'all. And again, thank you for listening. And we'll be back this weekend with some more of the infamous podcast with Brian at my side, virtually speaking, of course. And with that, I hope you all have a blessed Friday, and I'll talk to you later.